Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about using a gun for self-defense. And this video is mostly targeted for people in the anti-gun states that just got their right to carry. Okay, it might take about 2 years before you actually start carrying, but the Supreme Court said that you guys are not second-class citizens. So for those people in New York, New Jersey, Maryland, California, Illinois, Chicago, it might take 2 years, but put in your application, start getting your training, and you will get there. Soon enough, you will have that carry permit, and you will be carrying a gun. Now, the reason why I tell people that you should carry a gun, the reason why I carry a gun, is to assert my right to carry a gun. Okay, because if you don't assert your right, you're going to lose it. Okay, so that's the most important reason to carry your gun. You're basically making a statement to the government that you are a free person. Okay. Now, aside from that, of course, the gun would also be useful in a self-defense type of situation. And here's the thing: again, this is intended for the people in those states now that that just got their rights to carry. Right? Don't expect to need to use the gun in a self-defense situation. Okay, so that's really important, because I don't want people to start carrying a gun all of a sudden thinking that they're gonna need to use the gun. Don't start believing the news and the media hype and all that BS. Okay, you've made it so far in your life and you've survived without having to use deadly force, and you have had other methods of deadly force available to you, right? But you never had to resort to them because there's other things that you can do to avoid that type of situation. You've got a brain, you've got eyes, you've got ears, you've got hands, you've got feet, right? So you've been using other tools to avoid situations where you would have to use deadly force. Um, in many cases, it might be avoiding certain areas during certain times. So the things that you have been doing your whole life to avoid this type of a problem, continue to do that. Okay, so don't expect your life to change because all of a sudden you're carrying a gun. Like I said, the main reason why I carry a gun is to assert my right to carry a gun. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about using a gun for self-defense. And if you go to any of the gun training classes, the phrase that you will hear over and over again is the gun is a tool of last resort. Okay, so again, that kind of goes back to don't expect to need to shoot people on a daily basis. Okay, don't expect to get into that type of situation. Um, so guns are tool of last resort. Now, one of the things that they don't tell you often is what the other options are. Okay, and the reason is because they just kind of focus on one thing. When I train people, I usually get into other methods of self-defense as well. So in most states, okay, the only time that using deadly force is justified is to prevent death, your own or somebody else's, prevent rape, prevent kidnapping, or prevent serious bodily harm. Okay, so here's the thing: the law, in that sense, is kind of black and white. Life is not black and white. Life is more grayish. Okay, so here's an important gun carrying tip. Okay, um, if you ever do find yourself in that situation, you need to get yourself out of the gray and get yourself into the black and white. Okay, now what do I mean by that? Um, so here's the thing. As the situation is developing, okay, um, you can you can choose to do certain things or choose not to do certain things. You can choose the time at which you do certain things. One of the things I will tell people is that no warnings, okay, because and I've confirmed this with my prepaid legal service. But when people give warnings, that usually gets them in trouble because warnings are often construed as threats. Okay, because remember, in the aftermath, okay, you're gonna have two sides, maybe sometimes three or four sides, presenting information, and what you thought was giving somebody a warning, get back from me, get away from me, or I'm gonna shoot, I'm gonna defend myself, whatever. Somebody else can construe that as a threat. Okay, so one of the things that I tell people is the gun comes out of the holster only to be used. You don't make reference to the gun otherwise, okay? Because it can get you in trouble. It will be misinterpreted, okay? You draw a line in the sand, you know, and that's going to be different on the different circumstances. And at that point where that line is crossed and one of these four things is about to happen, either you're going to be killed, raped, kidnapped, or serious bodily harm, at that point you go to the gun, okay? So that's what I mean by getting things out of the gray and bringing it into the black and white, okay? Because let's say while something might be in the gray, if it's whatever 20 or 30 feet away, when it's right in front of you, now all of a sudden it's in that black and white, okay? Where, you know, just this is just a way of thinking about it, okay? Now, if you do use a gun for self-defense, some things that your attorney is going to have to prove, okay, on your behalf, is that there was an imminent deadly threat present, and that person had ways and means to kill you, right? So, meaning that, for example, if they're behind a fence or something with a knife, you know, they don't have ways and means because they can't get to you, okay? So it has to be an imminent deadly threat, and they have to have ways and means where they can actually do it. So that's the first thing that your lawyer is going to have to prove. Okay. The next thing that's usually going to come up is he's going to have to prove that you were innocent. What that means is that you weren't provoking the incident, and this is really important because this is one of those areas where if you're in one of those anti-gun states, and they're trying to basically turn you into a criminal, right? What they're going to try and prove is that you were in fact provoking this somehow. So that's why this has to be really, you know, you on your part, you have to be careful of how you defend yourself, at what point you defend yourself, and the timing, all that stuff's going to come into play, so that later on they can't say that you were provoking this somehow. And that's where we come in with no warnings, no threats, because all that can be seen as threatening. Okay, you threatening the other person. Okay, your response has to be proportional. So if they slap you or they spit on you, you can't shoot them. Okay, now you may still need to represent yourself and defend yourself, but you're going to have to also develop other means of defending yourself, just like you've had your whole life before you started carrying a gun. Right? You had hands, you had feet, you know, you have had other means of defending yourself. Well, all that is still in play. What we're trying to figure out, or one of the things that people like me will help you figure out, is at what point and how much, and you know, and what's proportional. That's the thing that we need to figure out, and for that we may also need to consult a prepaid legal service. Here, let me just jump into it. This is the one I use. It's called U.S. Law Shield. Okay, I've had these guys as long as I've been carrying, because the laws are different from state to state, and they're, especially if you're in one of these anti-gun states, they're going to go through a lot of changes over the next couple of years, and you need a prepaid legal service that will keep you up to date on all the changes that they try to push through, you know, through the state legislators, and then the court, they're probably going to be challenged in court. They're going to be overturned. They're going to come up with new laws. So it's going to probably take about 2 years for this stuff to get settled down. So you need somebody that's going to kind of keep you up to date on this stuff. Okay. So the other thing is, if this goes to court, right, your attorney is going to basically have to make a case that everything that you did was legal. Okay, and that means everything. And here's where this is an area where the anti-gun state can attack you, because they're going to say, well, you didn't do this legal, you didn't do that legal, you know. And if they can pick it apart and say this wasn't legal that you did, that wasn't legal that you did, you know, they're going to try and basically tear down your defense. And this is why, if you ever get involved in a self-defense type of situation, even if it doesn't involve the gun, even if it's just you know, fists, or just even yelling and screaming at the point where the police are involved, because even if it's just like a yelling and screaming type of situation, if you end up getting charged, right, for harassment, something like that, that's something that they can use to pull your carry permit in one of these anti-gun states. Okay, so that's why, like, this U.S. Law Shield covers that. So it's not just a legal defense for gun use, but it also involves any self-defense case, right? Even if it's your kids, you can put your wife on here, whether it's a gun or some other weapon or your fists, it's all covered. And it's really important. The thing to understand with the law, there are like literally tens of thousands of laws on the books. Okay, we do not know all the laws. The best attorneys in the country do not know all the laws. They just specialize in certain areas. Okay, and usually even within their specialty, they usually have to do a lot of research. So if the lawyers have to do research to know what the laws are, it's absolutely certain that me and you are not going to know all the laws. The police on the scene are not going to know all the laws, right? That's actually quite common. It's very common for police to arrest people for the wrong thing or charge them incorrectly at the point where they're trying to defend themselves. That's very common. So that's why if you're involved in a self-defense type of circumstance, what you want to do is you want to tell the police that, hey, that's the person that tried to hurt me. I had to defend myself. There's the evidence, whether it be knife, gun. These are shell cases. You know, that kind of signifies where you were standing relative to them. If they had been kicked around or moved, whatever, you got to bring that to their attention. You got to point out the witnesses. Okay. So these are the things that you're concerned with, right? Don't start telling don't talk about the details of what happened, because you're going to get it wrong. Okay, there's no way that you're going to remember everything that happened in the correct order. You know what you're going to do is you're going to give that information to the police. That's the person that tried to hurt me. I had to defend myself. Here's the evidence. Those are the witnesses, and I need to speak to my lawyer. The lawyer is going to probably take about a week to collect all the information, and then he will make a statement to the police. Now, among that information that he's probably going to collect is that the person that attacked you had already been in and out of jail 3 or 4 times, and they were currently out on probation, and perhaps a couple of hours earlier they had an incident where they beat up their girlfriend. Okay, so your lawyer is going to have the benefit of collecting all that information and basically discussing it with the prosecutor. There's a good chance that he may not need to give any statement with regards to exactly what you were doing because of the other person's history. Okay, so you're not going to have that information at the time of the incident. The police aren't going to have all that information. The lawyer, your own lawyer, is not going to have that information. It's going to take him a week to collect all this information, and then he's going to decide what information he's going to release at what time. Okay, so the lawyer is going to control that information. Okay, if you try to talk, especially at the time that this happened, you're just blabbing out things in not necessarily in the correct order, because the police aren't going to ask you things in a chronological order. You might have like 3 or 4 cops there. They're all going to start asking you things, different things related to they're going to start asking you different questions that are not necessarily connected to each other, and it's going to confuse you, right? So that's why you don't talk to the police, because you will incriminate yourself. Chances are if you start talking, you're going to make a statement, and then a couple of, let's say a week later, you make another statement, and now you're going to have conflicting statements. So you need a prepaid legal service to handle this for you. The one that I said, is that I use is U.S. Law Shield. Let me get this in focus. Okay, and it's not expensive. It's like $40, $30 or $40 up front, and then you pay like $11 a month. And then if you add your wife, or it might go up to like $15 or something. And I got a promo code for you. It's Pocono Shooting. That will get you some discount. I don't remember what it is, but the promo code Pocono Shooting will get you a discount. There's their website, uslawshield.com, and there's their phone number. Okay, so that's really important. And like I said, it covers more things than just using a gun for self-defense. If you're in a fist fight, if you're just in a shouting match, and the police are called, they'll assist you. This covers all of that. Okay, so I want to move on a little bit. I want to talk about, we said that the gun is a tool of last resort, but a lot of times what's not discussed is, okay, what are the other tools available? Okay, so you've got a brain, okay, a brain to see the situation developing and decide how to best avoid it. Okay, use your brain. Okay, again, a lot of this has to do with seeing what direction it's going into. If you're at one level, like let's say you're at the yelling and screaming level, be aware of when it's about to escalate beyond that to maybe hands, all right, and then maybe to weapons. So be aware of where, because we all have a good sense of, we've all been in arguments in our lives, and we have some sense of when something is about to go past yelling and screaming to the next level. Don't get it to that next level because it's going to get a lot messier. Okay. Okay, you got eyes and ears. Okay, really important. Be aware of your surrounding. Be aware, first of all, you got the person that you're having an issue with, but also look around, see who else is with that person and who's not with that person. Okay, as the situation is escalating, maybe change your position, right? Because if this escalates to weapons, right, and I have to go to a gun, well, if I draw and fire from here, my bullets would go someplace different than if I had just moved to here, because this angle is different versus this angle is different versus that angle is different, and all that is just 3 steps. Okay, so by taking 3 steps, I can drastically change the direction in which my bullets would be going. Okay, so you gotta use your eyes, you gotta use your brains, you gotta use your ears to be listening what's going on. Maybe there's other people communicating with each other. Okay, you've got a mouth. Okay, now when I say use your mouth, I'm not necessarily telling you to use your mouth to yell louder at the other person or bite them. Okay, what I'm saying here is you can use your mouth to notify other people that there's a problem, and you're telling this person to get away, get back, get away. I don't want to deal with this. I don't care. I'm going to go home. Okay. If you yell really loud, that's going to draw attention to the fact that you're trying to get away from the situation. And also, if it does escalate to the point where a weapon is used, right, what you don't want is for everybody to basically just hear a bang and then just see you pointing a gun at somebody. It would be a lot more helpful if they first heard you telling somebody, get back, get away, I don't want, and then they actually observed somebody coming at you with a knife, and then the bang. Okay, so use your mouth to bring attention to what's going on. Okay, now the other thing with eyes and ears, really important, specifically with women. Okay, because and I grew up in New York City. One of the things that always used to drive me nuts when I would see women, let's say on the subways, they would basically keep their eyes down and put their their headphones on so they couldn't see anything, and they couldn't hear anything. And that is the absolute worst thing that you can do, to ensure your survival. Okay. Now, the reason why they're doing it is because they're thinking if they don't look at people and if they don't listen to people, what they're trying to defend themselves against, right, in that situation, is they don't want all these guys hitting on them. Okay, that's okay. But while that may prevent, people, that may keep away prospective suitors, right? What that doesn't do is keep away potential rapists, okay? Because the rapist doesn't care if you're blind or deaf, okay? So what I tell people is keep your head on a swivel, make eye contact. Don't put on those stupid earphones. Make sure that you can hear everything. And if it does attract an uninvited suitor, okay, you just tell them to go away, okay? So that's an easy way to deal with that problem, because that's an easy problem, okay? So don't put up this, don't blind yourself and deafen yourself so that you don't have to deal with the easy problem, okay? Keep your eyes and your ears open so that you can deal with the more dangerous problem. And then the easy problem, you can just use your mouth to tell those problems to go away, all right? So that's first thing I tell people in the self-defense class, make eye contact with any potential threats. No headphones. Keep your ears open so that you can hear everything. They might be communicating with each other. Also, you can hear other people. you know, maybe other, you know, whatever's going on, you want to have all your senses at 100%, especially if you sense a dangerous situation developing. Okay. Uh, Next thing, hands and feet. Guys, and with ladies, learn to fight. Okay. Learn to use your hands. Now, again, most of the gun training classes, they focus on shooting the gun, right, for self-defense. And the thing to understand here is that, you know, here's the thing. Part of the reason why we, you know, armies made such a quick transition from other weapons like swords and bows and arrows to guns, right? It was not necessarily because the guns were better, because let's say around the time of the American Revolution, bows and arrows were a lot more accurate, and they could be fired a lot faster. Okay, the arrows that Indians were using were better than the muskets that the colonists had. The benefit of the muskets was that it was easier to train people on. Okay, so the same thing applies today. It is easier to train people to use a gun than it is to teach them to fight. Okay, it takes a lot more effort. However, okay, that's part of the. I mean, you want to develop that. Okay, develop that as much as possible, because like we said, the gun is the tool of last resort. You have to have other options available before that. So you gotta develop your hands, right, and also your feet. You gotta be able to move away from the problem. Okay, so these are things that you gotta keep in mind, right? You got all these other tools available to you. You got a brain, eyes, ears, hands, feet, and a mouth. Learn to use those. Okay, that's what we mean by the gun is a tool of last resort. Use all those other things first. Okay. And lastly, what we're going to say here is that when it comes to using a gun for self-defense, okay, don't depend on the gun. Depend on your skills. Okay, the gun is just, you know, the skills that you have with the gun is one of many skills available to you. Okay, and I tell people there's no gun is 100% reliable. If you don't hold it correctly, it can jam. So you gotta be able to unjam the gun or go to a different weapon. A different weapon might not even be a gun. You know, go to your feet, go to your hands. You know, go to some other, you know, whatever's available. You know, a hammer, whatever's available. Okay, so don't depend on the gun. Depend on your skills and try to develop your self-defense skills. And the gun is one of those self-defense skills. Okay. So last thing let me give you guys, again, you got to have a prepaid legal service, especially if you're in one of those anti-gun states, right? Because if you get into trouble, they're going to come after you. They're going to try and make an example out of you. Okay. And the laws are going to change pretty quickly in those anti-gun states over the next couple of years. And what happens is with U.S. Law Shield, what they'll do is they'll send you email updates every time the law changes. They'll send you videos, links that, you know, like that to help you stay on top of these things. So you got to have a prepaid legal service. That's the first thing I got when I first started carrying a gun. Okay, and there's your promo code that will get you some discount. It's Pocono Shooting. So I hope this video was useful to you guys. And like I said, with these 6 states, it's different than the rest of the states, right? Because in the other states, like here in Pennsylvania, you know, the way it works is like if you get somebody that's going to just start carrying a gun, well, when they go to the gun range, well, there's like 20 other people that have already been carrying a gun for like 20 years, and they can convey a lot of information to that person. And also the gun laws are very like stable in a state like Pennsylvania, right? Whereas in states like New York, New Jersey, Maryland, when you go to the gun range, everybody's new to this. Okay, so the people there, including the gun instructors there, may not know all the information because they haven't been carrying a gun, right? So they're not going to know all this information. So that's why it's really, I mean, your job is to collect this information, right? You know, you're probably going to have to travel outside of those states. You're going to have to travel outside of those anti-gun states, outside of New York, New Jersey, Maryland, California, Illinois, and Hawaii is going to be rough because you guys, you know, you guys got quite of a trip. You either got to fly out, sail out, or swim out to get to a gun range where you've got instructors, you know, like me that have been carrying a gun for like 12 years and have some, you know, practical, gun carrying information to give you, right? Because, and like I said, the most practical thing I can tell anybody is don't expect to need to use a gun on any given day for self-defense. You've got lots of other tools available. Use all those other tools first. And, with that, we can say that the gun is the tool of last resort, but make sure you develop the other tools too. Don't just focus on the gun. Learn to use your brain, eyes, ears, hands, feet, and your mouth. I'll talk to you all soon.